It's over. The fortress has cracked. The guardians of justice, once believed to be loyal, have turned their backs. Tonight, America watches a betrayal unfold that shakes the very foundations of power. Donald Trump always believed the Supreme Court was his shield. After all, weren't these justices his legacy, his hand-picked defenders, his ultimate insurance against the storms of politics? But what happens when the shield splinters and the sword points back at you? For years, his critics warned, no institution is truly loyal to one man. Yet his supporters believed otherwise. They believed the court would stand by him no matter what. But tonight, that illusion is shattered. Imagine this: the very justices he appointed, the ones he celebrated, now delivering a ruling that cuts straight through his defenses. A ruling that doesn't just challenge his power, it dismantles it. And the question we must ask is chilling. If even Trump's own justices can turn against him, who's left to stand by his side? Trump's fortress of justices. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, we must rewind back to the years when Donald Trump stood at the pinnacle of power, carefully selecting the very justices who now stand against him. Each appointment was more than a legal decision. It was a calculated move, a brick in the fortress he believed would protect him forever. Trump's strategy was clear: reshape the court, cement his influence, and ensure that when the storms of politics raged, he would have guardians in robes to shield him. And for a time, it seemed to work. His supporters cheered as conservative justices took their seats, believing the balance of power had shifted permanently in his favor. But here's the chilling truth. Loyalty in the halls of justice is not the same as loyalty in politics. Judges are bound not by allegiance to a man, but by the Constitution, by precedent, by forces larger than any single leader. And yet, Trump believed otherwise. The verdict that shook the fortress. The chamber was hushed, every eye fixed on the bench. Trump's allies leaned forward, certain salvation was moments away. After all, these were his justices, his legacy, his fortress. But what came next would shatter that illusion forever. The ruling was read, cold, precise, unflinching. And in that moment, the fortress collapsed. The very justices Trump had appointed, the ones he believed would shield him, delivered a decision that cut straight through his defenses. It wasn't just a legal setback. It was betrayal carved into law. Headlines erupted instantly. Trump's own court turns against him. Supporters gasped in disbelief. How could this be? How could the guardians he handpicked now stand on the opposite side? Shockwaves across America. The ruling had been delivered. The fortress had fallen. And now, the shockwaves rippled across America like an earthquake no one saw coming. Outside the courthouse, the air was thick with disbelief. Supporters stood frozen, their chants silenced, their faces pale with confusion. How could this happen? Headlines screamed betrayal. News anchors spoke with hushed urgency. Social media exploded with fury, disbelief, and fear. For Trump's base, it was unthinkable. The very guardians they believed would protect him had turned their backs. This wasn't just a legal defeat, it was psychological warfare. A blow to the very foundation of Trump's narrative, that he was untouchable, shielded by the court. The domino effect of betrayal. The ruling was not the end. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Like a stone dropped into water, the betrayal sent ripples outward, touching every corner of America's political landscape. Allies, opponents, and ordinary citizens alike felt the tremors. Trump's allies were the first to feel the shock. Governors, senators, and party leaders who once stood firmly behind him now faced a terrifying question. If the Supreme Court could turn, could they be next? Supporters, too, felt the ground shift beneath their feet. For years, they believed Trump was untouchable. But with the ruling, that belief crumbled, and in its place grew something darker. doubt. Whispers in the shadows. Every betrayal has a story behind it, and this one may not be as simple as justices doing their duty. Because behind the ruling, behind the cold words carved into law, there were whispers. Whispers of pressure, whispers of influence, whispers of forces lurking in the shadows. Trump believed the court was his fortress. But what if unseen hands were always guiding the outcome, pulling strings from behind the curtain? The ruling wasn't just a decision, it was a signal. Isolation and the collapse of power. The betrayal had been delivered, the whispers had spread, and now the consequences began to take shape. For Donald Trump, the ruling was not just a legal defeat, it was the beginning of isolation. The fortress he believed would protect him had crumbled, leaving him exposed, vulnerable, and alone. This is the terrifying truth. Betrayal doesn't just wound, it isolates. It strips away the layers of protection, leaving behind only fear. The betrayal has been delivered, the fortress has collapsed, and now America is left staring into the haunting aftermath. For Donald Trump, the ruling was more than a defeat. It was a revelation. A revelation that loyalty is fragile, power is fleeting, and betrayal can strike even from within. This is the chilling truth. Betrayal doesn't end with the act itself. It lingers. It haunts. It spreads like a shadow, touching everything in its path. Echoes of betrayal. The ruling may have ended in the courtroom, but its echoes continue to reverberate across America. Betrayal does not vanish when the gavel falls. It lingers, it festers, it spreads. And now, the nation finds itself haunted by questions that refuse to die. History is filled with betrayals. Leaders toppled not by enemies, but by allies. Empires crumbling not from external attacks, but from internal fractures. And now, America watches as that same pattern unfolds. The endless shadow of betrayal. The betrayal has been delivered. The fortress has collapsed. The aftermath has shaken America. But the story does not end here. Because betrayal, once unleashed, does not simply vanish. It lingers. It festers. It becomes an endless shadow that follows power wherever it goes. Donald Trump's downfall in the courtroom was more than a ruling. It was a symbol. A symbol that even the strongest fortress can crumble. Beyond the courtroom, the fear that remains. The gavel has fallen. The ruling has been delivered. The betrayal has echoed through America. And yet, the fear remains. Because betrayal does not end with a verdict, it seeps into the cracks of society, into the minds of millions. Trump's collapse in the courtroom was more than a headline. It was a psychological earthquake. Supporters still whisper in disbelief, their faith fractured. Opponents celebrate, but even they feel the tremors of uncertainty. The gavel has fallen. The betrayal has echoed. The aftermath has shaken America. But the story does not end here. Because betrayal is not a single act, it is a cycle. A cycle that repeats through history, through politics, through power itself. Trump's collapse in the courtroom was more than a ruling. It was a warning. A warning that loyalty is fragile, that power is fleeting, that betrayal is inevitable. And so the cycle continues. The betrayal lingers, the shadow stretches forward, and the nation is left with a chilling truth. If even Trump's own justices can turn against him, then history will repeat. Betrayal will return, and the cycle will never end.